But first, we are breaking news out of the capital city. 13 people are charged, 11 are in custody after a 6-month investigation into drug trafficking.
Officials say 2 more people are expected to be arrested shortly. These arrests were the results of multiple early morning raids. Only our cameras were recording this morning as these raids took dangerous drugs and guns off the street.
By the safest country the nation has ever seen under President Trump's leadership here. And that's what we did here today with great resolve on a case of massive public importance.
The Sinaloa Cartel built a military fortress in your state. For 4 years, they operated a 47-acre compound in rural Georgia, reinforced walls, guard towers, underground bunkers, and an armory that would make a military base jealous. They hired former U.S. soldiers to defend it. They stored $1.2 billion in cash in underground vaults while your communities suffered from the drugs they distributed. They kept grenade launchers, anti-tank weapons, and enough ammunition to fight a war. And they planned to expand across the entire East Coast from this fortress. The FBI just stormed it in the largest tactical raid in Georgia history. 89 cartel members arrested, military-grade weapons seized. And something agents found in those underground bunkers proves this wasn't just a distribution hub. This was an invasion beachhead. Subscribe to Truth America right now because what they discovered will shock you. Here's what happened. October 15th, 2021, Pike County, Georgia. The Sinaloa Cartel purchased a 47-acre property 90 miles south of Atlanta through a network of shell companies. To neighbors, it appeared to be a wealthy investor buying land for a private estate. The property was remote, surrounded by dense forest, accessible only by a single dirt road. Perfect for privacy, perfect for secrecy, perfect for building a cartel fortress. Over the next 6 months, construction crews, many brought from Mexico, transformed the property into something that looked more like a military installation than a rural estate. They built an 8-foot concrete wall topped with razor wire around the entire perimeter. They constructed guard towers at each corner equipped with night vision cameras and motion sensors. They installed a sophisticated surveillance system with over 200 cameras covering every approach to the property. The main building was a 12,000 square foot compound designed to withstand assault, reinforced concrete walls 2 feet thick, bulletproof windows, steel doors that could be locked down remotely, a backup power system with generators capable of running the facility independently for months, and underneath, a network of tunnels and bunkers extending 40 feet underground, designed to hide personnel, drugs, weapons, and most importantly, money. The compound's purpose was strategic. The Sinaloa Cartel had dominated drug distribution in the Southwest and Midwest for decades. But the East Coast, from the Carolinas to New York, represented untapped territory worth billions. They needed a secure operations center far enough from the border to avoid suspicion, but positioned perfectly to distribute drugs across the eastern United States. Rural Georgia was ideal. The cartel recruited 89 individuals to staff the fortress, 34 cartel operatives who managed drug distribution across 12 states, 23 warehouse workers who processed and packaged narcotics, 12 financial coordinators who laundered money, and 20 security personnel. The security team was particularly concerning. The cartel had specifically recruited former U.S. military personnel, offering salaries of $200,000 annually, plus bonuses. These weren't ordinary guards. They were combat veterans trained in military tactics, surveillance, and defensive operations. The fortress operated like a military logistics hub. Drug shipments arrived from Mexico via trucks and small aircraft landing at a private airstrip the cartel had built on the property. The drugs were processed in underground facilities, repackaged for distribution, and shipped to networks across the East Coast. The money flowed back to Georgia, where financial coordinators laundered it through shell companies before transferring it to Mexico. Over 4 years, the fortress served as the nerve center for an operation that moved an estimated $4.8 billion worth of cocaine, methamphetamine, and fentanyl across the eastern United States. The $1.2 billion in cash stored in underground vaults represented proceeds awaiting laundering. It was the largest concentration of drug money ever discovered on U.S. soil. But the fortress had a weakness. It was so sophisticated, so well defended, and so expensive to operate that it attracted FBI attention. The investigation that would lead FBI to the fortress began in March 2024 when DEA agents in North Carolina arrested a mid-level distributor during a traffic stop. In his vehicle, 45 kilograms of cocaine and encrypted phones containing communications referencing the base in Georgia and the general. Cartel code names for the fortress and its commander. DEA contacted FBI's Atlanta field office. If the Sinaloa Cartel had built a distribution hub in Georgia, it represented a major escalation in cartel operations. FBI opened an investigation combining resources from DEA, ICE, and ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, whose expertise in weapons would prove critical. The first challenge was finding the fortress. The arrested distributor provided only vague descriptions. Rural area south of Atlanta. Massive property, heavily guarded. FBI began analyzing property records in Pike, Lamar, and Upson counties, searching for purchases by shell companies with connections to known cartel financial networks. In May 2024, FBI identified a suspicious purchase, a 47-acre property in Pike County bought in 2021 by a Delaware LLC registered to an address that didn't exist. Financial analysis traced the LLC to a web of companies ultimately controlled by Sinaloa operatives. Satellite imagery showed extensive construction, buildings, walls, towers, infrastructure far beyond what any legitimate private estate required. FBI obtained federal warrants for aerial surveillance in June 2024. Drone footage revealed the fortress's full scope: perimeter walls, guard towers, underground construction, vehicles coming and going at odd hours, and personnel conducting what appeared to be military-style patrols. This wasn't a drug warehouse. This was a fortified cartel base. Drop a comment below. Should cartels who build military fortresses on U.S. soil face terrorism charges? Is this an invasion? And if you're not subscribed to Truth America yet, hit that button. We expose how cartels are establishing military operations in your states. Subscribe now. In July 2024, FBI installed covert surveillance equipment in the forest surrounding the property. Hidden cameras documented the operation, trucks arriving with shipments, cartel members moving drugs, security personnel conducting armed patrols, and sophisticated defensive procedures, including changing guard rotations and surveillance monitoring. The security protocols were military-grade, confirming the presence of trained personnel. FBI also identified the security team through facial recognition and background checks. 12 of the 20 guards were U.S. military veterans, former Army infantry, Marines, even 2 ex-Special Forces soldiers. They'd been recruited by the cartel specifically for their combat experience. Some had received dishonorable discharges. Others had left service honorably but fallen into financial trouble. The cartel had offered them money they couldn't refuse. Wiretaps authorized in August 2024 captured communications between the fortress and Sinaloa leadership in Mexico. Discussions about shipment schedules, distribution territories, and most concerning, expansion plans. The cartel intended to build similar fortresses in North Carolina and Virginia, creating a network of fortified bases across the East Coast. By October 2024, FBI had mapped the entire operation. They knew how many people staffed the fortress, what weapons they possessed, and where the money was hidden. But raiding a fortified position defended by trained military veterans would be dangerous. FBI needed a tactical plan that would overwhelm the defenders before they could mount resistance. November 6, 2025. 4 a.m., FBI hostage rescue team. The Bureau's elite tactical unit, coordinated with DEA Special Response Team, ICE Homeland Security Investigations Tactical Agents, ATF Special Response Team, and Georgia State Patrol SWAT for Operation Peach State Siege. The plan: breach the fortress from 4 directions simultaneously, overwhelm security, and secure 89 individuals before they could destroy evidence or mount armed resistance. At precisely 4:17 a.m., FBI cut power and communications to the property. The compound's backup generators activated, but jamming equipment disabled the fortress's radio communications and cell phones. The cartel was isolated. At 4:19 a.m., breaching teams moved. FBI hostage rescue team used shape charges to blow open the main gate while simultaneously breaching the perimeter wall at 3 other points. DEA and ATF teams poured through the breaches. Within seconds, 120 federal agents were inside the compound perimeter. The fortress's security team attempted to respond but was overwhelmed. 2 former soldiers who'd been on guard duty reached for weapons and were immediately subdued by FBI tactical operators. In guard towers, other security personnel found themselves surrounded by agents who'd scaled the walls. Not one shot was fired. The speed and coordination of the raid gave defenders no opportunity to mount resistance. Inside the main building, FBI found 34 cartel operatives still in their sleeping quarters. They were arrested in their beds. In underground processing rooms, 23 warehouse workers were caught with 840 kilograms of cocaine and 670 kilograms of methamphetamine laid out for packaging. In offices, 12 financial coordinators were arrested at computers containing financial records documenting 4 years of operations. But the most shocking discoveries came when FBI reached the underground vaults. In bunker-style rooms reinforced with steel and concrete, agents found $1.2 billion in cash. The money was stored in plastic-wrapped bricks stacked floor to ceiling in climate-controlled rooms. It represented the single largest cash seizure in FBI history. In the armory, ATF agents found weapons that stunned even experienced federal investigators. 23 grenade launchers, including military M203 and MK-19 models, 12 anti-tank rockets, 67 fully automatic assault rifles, 340 handguns, 89 rifles, 12 belt-fed machine guns, 2,400 pounds of explosives, including C4 and grenades, and 4 million rounds of ammunition. The fortress had been armed to fight a war. By 6:30 a.m., the operation was complete. All 89 individuals arrested, the fortress secured, and federal agents were beginning the process of documenting evidence that would fill 67 trucks and take weeks to catalog. November 7, 2025. Attorney General Pamela Bondi held a press conference in Atlanta alongside FBI Director Christopher Wray, DEA Administrator Ann Milgram, ICE Director Patrick Lechleitner, and ATF Director Stephen Dettelbach. Yesterday, federal law enforcement stormed a Sinaloa Cartel military fortress in rural Georgia. For 4 years, the cartel operated a 47-acre compound designed to distribute drugs across the eastern United States. They armed it with grenade launchers, anti-tank weapons, and enough ammunition to supply a battalion. They hired former U.S. military personnel to defend it, and they stored $1.2 billion in cash in underground vaults. This was not a drug house. This was a military installation on American soil, and we shut it down. The charges reflected the operation's severity. All 89 defendants faced federal charges: conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, drug trafficking, money laundering, and weapons violations. The 20 security personnel, especially the 12 military veterans, faced additional charges: conspiracy against the United States, providing material support to foreign terrorist organizations under the Sinaloa FTO designation, and weapons trafficking. The military veterans who'd betrayed their training by serving a cartel faced particular scrutiny. Defense attorneys argued they were just security guards. Prosecutors argued they'd used U.S. military training to defend a foreign criminal organization and had armed that organization with military-grade weapons. The betrayal was profound. Faced with overwhelming evidence, FBI had every conversation, transaction, and operation documented. 76 of the 89 defendants accepted plea agreements within 5 months. Cartel operatives received 20-40 years. Warehouse workers got 15 to 25 years. Financial coordinators received 25 to 35 years. Security personnel received 30 to 50 years, with military veterans receiving the harshest sentences for betraying their service. 13 defendants went to trial in April 2026, including the Fortress Commander, a Sinaloa operative who'd overseen the entire East Coast operation, and 3 of the military veterans who'd served as head of security. The prosecution presented satellite imagery, surveillance footage, seized weapons, the $1.2 billion in cash, and testimony from cooperating defendants. The Fortress Commander received 7 consecutive life sentences. The 3 military veterans received 60, 65, and 70 years respectively. The judge addressed them directly. You swore an oath to defend the United States. Instead, you used your military training to defend a foreign cartel that poisons American communities. You armed them with military weapons. You helped them build a fortress on American soil. Your betrayal is complete, and you will spend the rest of your lives in federal prison. All assets connected to the fortress, the property, vehicles, weapons, and the $1.2 billion were forfeited. The money was dedicated to drug treatment programs across the 12 states the fortress had supplied. The property was sold to a legitimate buyer after all cartel infrastructure was demolished. The fortress raid triggered nationwide investigations. FBI discovered the Sinaloa Cartel had been planning similar fortresses in North Carolina and Virginia. Land had been purchased, but construction hadn't begun. Those properties were seized before cartels could build additional bases. President Trump addressed Operation Peach State Siege during a national security briefing. The Sinaloa Cartel built a military fortress in Georgia. They armed it with grenade launchers and anti-tank weapons. They hired American soldiers who swore oaths to defend us, to protect it, and they stored over $1 billion in drug money in underground bunkers. This is an invasion, and we responded with overwhelming force. We will not allow cartels to establish military bases on American soil. The 47-acre property in Pike County, Georgia sits empty now. The fortress demolished, the underground bunkers filled with concrete. The 89 individuals who operated it served decades to life in federal prisons across the country. And the $1.2 billion that funded cartel expansion is now funding treatment programs that save American lives. If you believe Truth America is essential to exposing how cartels are building military fortresses on American soil, then like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. Share this with everyone who needs to know that cartels aren't just trafficking drugs, they're establishing armed bases in your states. This is why we exist, to expose the invasions mainstream media won't cover, the fortresses hidden in plain sight, and the federal operations that destroy them. This is Truth America, defending American soil. We'll see you in the next one.